Hello. Thanks for tuning in for our first Tales from the Trail, episode 1. And this week we are going to Michigan, and I am joined by special guest Rickey Gates today to talk to us a little bit about his journey into running, what it means to him, and just share some of the adventures that he's done over in Michigan. So thanks for joining us, Rickey. I think your mute might be on.
Yep.
Yeah. So Rickey, I have been a runner for maybe the last decade, 12 years, and you were already a well-established runner at that time. I think I first met you at Trans Rockies back in maybe 2009, 2010. So you've been running for a long time. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into running?
Totally. First of all, I shaved off my gray beard for this event to not show how much time I've been doing this. Colorado. Part of my coach's MO for making us get out there and love running and stick with it for as long as possible was to take us out on the trails at least twice a week. And that's what's really stuck with me all of these years. So that was 25 years ago, and I'm still at it. My career as a runner has gone from high school cross country to a little bit of college cross country to traveling around the world with my main sponsor Solomon to all 7 continents, and further on down the road to doing more project-based runs, such as running across the country and running all of the streets in San Francisco. So now I'm here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and loving this sport, this event more than ever, and so excited to be a part of Protect Our Winters, and especially now that there's the POW Trail Alliance team.
We feel really lucky to have you. And as a trail runner, Rickey, I can say you've got quite the diverse resume of runs you've done, from running every street in San Francisco to covering some of the most gnarly trails. So it's really incredible to watch you as a fan and see these projects that you come up with. One thing you've described yourself as is a conceptual runner. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
So I have to say I'm grateful to an artist friend of mine for giving me that title. For those in the art world, a conceptual artist is someone that kind of thinks about art not so much in your normal terms of painting or in sculpture, but really stretching the boundaries of what art can be. And when he described me as a conceptual runner, I really took to that term. I really enjoyed it and appreciated it. So to me, what that means is that I start to think of running in terms of more than just races, more than just fitness, and more than just my mental sanity. It's a way to connect with people. It's a way to use my voice, and it's a way to get to know our world quite a bit better.
That's really beautiful. That's something I aspire to do as well. And that's a really good description of, when we tell people we're runners, oftentimes the first question is, what's your marathon time? And to me and to a lot of other runners, it's so much more than that. So that was a really good description. And I love those words. So what really inspires you to get out and explore on 2 feet? I mean, we have so many different ways to see the world. What really inspires you to get you motivated to do these big projects that you do?
For me, it's really about getting to know a place. I guess in a way, I can kind of liken it to just being a little bit impatient. I like to get to know places as well as I can, and I like to get to know people. For me, running is just simply the fastest and most pure way to get to know a place, and whether that's a town by running all of the streets in that town, or trails leading to the mountains. There's really no better way to get to know those places, and it's kind of the fast track to do so. So, that goes for everywhere in the world that I've ever been. I get out there, and the first thing that I do is I put my shoes on, and I get out the door, and go for an hour or 2 hours and smell the air, and talk to some people if there's some people out there, and really sort of get a feeling for these things.
Oh, so I agree. I love exploring new places on feet because you don't need gear. You don't need like ski tracks or a bike, and it's a great way to get to learn a new place. So let's talk a little bit about Michigan. So you ran in Isle Royale in Michigan, and probably not too many people are familiar with this island. I actually went to school in the UP of Michigan, and I was familiar with Isle Royale, excuse me, but I didn't know much about it. I didn't know that there was 165 miles of trail on this island. So tell us a little bit about what inspired you to go to Michigan and what that adventure looked like.
So for 3 years there, my then girlfriend and now wife was going to school in Madison, Wisconsin, for art, getting her master's degree in art, and I was just kind of there figuring out different ways to entertain myself, as my job can kind of exist anywhere. And every time I pulled out a map of the area, my eyes kind of wandered up to this island up in the northernmost part of Lake Superior, and kind of shaped like Manhattan, but perhaps 4 times as large. And I'm like, what is this island? And I started hearing stories about it, about there being wolves on this island, and moose, and this unique, incredible biosphere of all sorts of flora and fauna. And by the end of those 3 years, I'd realized that I still hadn't been to this island, and I had just kind of a couple weeks left there, and I hit my wife's studio mate up for a partnership in doing this with me, and he agreed to join me up there for sort of a fast packing running mission to see as much of the island as we could in as short amount of time as possible. So we drove 6 hours from Madison up to the shores of Lake Superior, got on a boat, took a 3-hour boat ride to the island, and then set off on this incredible end to end, coast to coast journey of this amazing island. Um, and I haven't been to northern Maine, but from the accounts that I've heard, it's very similar to kind of the northernmost part of the United States, minus Alaska.
It sounds like quite the adventure just getting to the island. And for those of you who haven't been to Lake Superior, it is a huge freshwater lake, super cold as well, but you have to get way out there. And I've seen some of your photos, Rickey, from this trip, and it looks like it was more of an adventure than a run. Can you talk about some of the trails and what were they like?
Yeah, so the island itself is really incredible. 160 miles of trail, as you mentioned. There's no vehicles on the island. Being that it's national park and wilderness, there's no bikes. Um, it's uh, it's really a really special place. There's camping wherever you'd like to camp along the island. There is lakes within the island that you can kayak or pack raft or canoe. We brought some alpaca rafts with us to traverse a couple of those lakes. And then this really amazing system of 3 walled shelters that you can kind of go, so it makes it so that you can travel really quite light. We didn't bring any camping gear with us other than our sleeping pad and sleeping bag, because you can sleep inside these shelters all across the island. So in my opinion, having been to quite a few places around the country and around the world, I really find it to be one of the best trail running paradises that we have here. And to top it off, it's the least visited national park in the entire lower 48. So you're more likely going to see a bunch of moose there than other human beings.
Did you run into on this trail?
Not a lot, and it was we managed to get the very first boat to the island. They closed the island off through the winter time, so it's just a pure biosphere of flora and fauna for 7 months out of the year, and we managed to get the first boat to the island. So we saw a father and son hiking along, and managed to pass off our alpaca rafts on them after we had kind of had our fun with them, and met up with our alpaca rafts as we got back on the boat on our way back to the shores of Wisconsin. And then we saw a small group of young college students that were that had just graduated, and then otherwise it was just us there.
I think especially during these times, people are really taking to the trails, and to be able to go on a trail and have complete solitude like that is pretty amazing. There aren't many places like that exist, so I think that's a really incredible aspect of Michigan, and just kind of maybe being not quite as popular of a destination for trail runners right now, but the potential is there to be this really great trail running mecca. So what did you learn about the landscape in Michigan? And I know, Michigan is a diverse state, but especially, traversing this island, what did you learn? What was different from other trails that you've covered?
Well, yeah, Isle Royale is an interesting place because the history of it goes back. I should say the human history goes back thousands, if not thousands of years, with the native people up there. They would kayak over from the mainland for happy hunting grounds. And then more in the early 1800s to middle 1800s, it was discovered by Europeans and became a hot spot for mining and for hardwoods. And so really from end to end, the entire island was clear cut back in the late 1800s and then into the early 1900s, when all the trees had been cut down, and they had decided that they had found most of the minerals that they could haul off the island. There was really this quiet period of about 50 years where everything regenerated, including 2 packs of wolves, which had migrated down from the mainland from the north, which doesn't happen all the time, but once every 5 to 10 years, the lake freezes over enough that there's a land bridge. And so it's really a unique biosphere that can provide so much insight, not just into that island in particular, but really the earth, because it can be pretty secluded for months and years on end.
Yeah, and this is kind of a good time to move into a little bit talking about the climate. And as a trail runner, someone like yourself who's been all over the world, what has the changes in the climate and the environment, and changes to the public lands? What have you noticed as a runner? What has you thinking? And because we all are here as part of How, obviously we're concerned about this. So, what is I guess the climate have it? What impact does the climate have on your ability to run and enjoy these places?
Yeah, so having only been to Isle Royale this one time, I'm unable to compare that place from previous missions there. So I've only got that one reference, but in other references, I've been spending the past decade and a half, 2 decades, traveling around the world and running and racing in some of the most incredible places that you can imagine. And having that perspective of 2 decades of running, you really see the impact and the changes that are happening. I spent quite a lot of time racing in Europe, and in just the few short years that I was there, returning to the same glaciers in Chamonix or in Austria, you can see the visible difference in these glaciers. Back in Colorado, running the same trails year after year, you notice that there's certain mushrooms that come back later and later, or fewer and fewer. And then currently, just outside of my hometown of Aspen, Colorado, there's yet another fire that's happening and raging through and clouding the skies. And so it's unfortunate, but it's something that we as young people, we as trail runners, as nature lovers, are able to see in a very short period of time.
I mean, it takes a lot of the enjoyment out, and a lot of things are canceled. I know exactly what you're talking about with the shrinking glaciers, going to Chamonix and seeing the Mer de Glace just like down further and further each year, and then the forest fires and the extreme weather, flooding, drought, temperature shifts, and it used to be something where this was a rare occurrence, and maybe a race would be canceled or a trip would be postponed, but now it's kind of become the regular. And there's extremes all over the world, and it's really impacting our ability to get out and enjoy our earth, and not just for personal reasons, but for the health of our planet as well, and for our future generations. So it's something that is, I think, really hits home to me because I spend so much time in the outdoors. And talking specifically about Michigan, I know this was just your only trip up to the island, but they've definitely seen some shifts in climate patterns, storms. They've seen a lot of extreme weather and flooding, and I could imagine that's really going to impact some of these trails and ecosystems up there.
Absolutely, yeah, and we see it with in a lot of different ways. And I think one of the main ways that we're seeing it is just in the change of the forest, and how specifically in Colorado, how the pine beetle that used to be more or less mitigated by the cold temperatures of the wintertime, we're not reaching those consistent cold temperatures anymore. And so these pine beetles are able to live and exist and really thrive through the summer times and kill off humongous swaths of pine forests, and in turn that turns into our I hate to say it, but fire season. When I was growing up, I'm not that old, but when I was growing up, we didn't have a quote unquote fire season, and now we do. And in other places around the country, fire season is now year round. Like in California, there's fire season year round. So it's a real thing, and it's something that we're able to see constantly. And this is one of the reasons, if not the main reason, that I really wanted to get involved in POW, and to use my voice and my platform to figure out what to do, because I was frankly feeling a little bit discouraged on what I could do on my own. And to have this platform, and to be able to reach people, and to be able to get people excited and encouraged to make a change. And that's where I'm really excited to see this go.
It's really good to have this ability to actually do something, because I felt the same way. I was so frustrated, and I felt like I was kind of stuck, like my voice couldn't be heard, I couldn't do anything. And so just connecting with POW and also just using the resources that they make available to everyone is really a great way to feel like you can bridge that barrier of like, I want to do something to actually doing something. We'll wrap up talking about the Make a Plan to Vote tool, but that's something where everyone can use to help push some of this in the direction to protect our environment, our climate, our public lands. Let's take a couple questions from the crowd. So the first question we have is, Rickey, do you have any upcoming running projects or pieces?
Yeah, I've got a couple different projects. I've always really loved taking other people out into the wilderness, out onto the trails. I put together a running trip a few years ago called Hut Run Hut, and this goes from hut to hut in the Colorado Rockies. I'm going to be doing one of those with a smaller group than normal next month. And then a bus trip up in Alaska, which is unfortunately postponed until next year. But probably the running project that I'm most excited about is a project that I'm calling the 50 Classic Trails of North America. And this is kind of a tip of the hat to 50 Classic Climbs of North America, an incredible book from the 1970s that highlights some of the most amazing big wall climbs in North America. I wanted to take that same concept and apply it to the trail running world and really highlight some of the most incredible trails that this continent has to offer. Not just to get people, give them something to strive for, but also to highlight these areas of all different landscapes and biospheres to show what this continent has to offer and to give people something to strive for.
Cheers, I love it. One more question. Let's see. What narrative do you use when talking about climate change with friends or family who may be on the fence?
Yeah, highlighting things that they to consider them. Um, my dad, he's able to be at 70 years old and definitely not of the same political persuasion. I I know that there's certain of Colorado that he's been visiting.
I can chime in and say I've just found that finding a common ground is the best way to connect with people, and sharing our love for the environment is a really good way to kind of bring us all together, whether, you know, whatever side of the aisle that we're on. Finding that common ground and talking through in that manner tends to be a more positive conversation, because you can't change people's minds, you know, by saying my way is right. So find that common ground and keep it positive, I think is the best way to address some of these issues. So we're getting close to the end of our session today, but I just want to give a big shout out to Trail Runner Magazine for sponsoring the series, and they're going to at the end have 2 lucky attendees this evening will win a year subscription to Trail Runner Magazine. So very generous, great way to stay up on the latest happenings in the trail world. And you can check out Trail Runner Magazine, trailrunnermag.com, for in-depth interviews on some of these runners that we're talking to. So thank you for supporting our series. And we also want to kind of close this talk out with mentioning the Make a Plan to Vote tool, which we're going to be putting out for everyone to share with their family and friends, because we know when you commit to vote and you make a plan to vote, much more likely to get out the door and do it. And so this is something that we want to have you share with your whole network. It's one thing you can do right now to really take some action. And so we're going to end this with going to the Make a Plan to Vote tool. But I really want to say thank you so much to Rickey for being here, sharing your insight, sharing your adventures. It's just been fun to follow you as a fan and as a friend, and really see, how you're able to really make running more of just kind of a global thing. So keep it up. Well, I think we maybe lost Rickey's voice, but thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will go, I think, to the Make a Plan to Vote tool.
Started to understand that amplifying our voices and getting people out to vote is the only thing that we can do fast enough to kind of solve these major issues.